Welcome to another episode of Mentor Musings. I'm JC, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Brett. Hey, Brett.
Hey, JC, how are you today?
Doing great. And
Awesome.
We have producer Dennis with us as well. So Dennis, I know we were talking right before the episode, and you actually brought up a really interesting question. So why don't you kick things off, and we'll take it from there.
Well, yeah. So JC, you're a technologist. You're in the industry and whatnot. And what is like the one thing that a company needs, or just going into technology, or just what is the one thing? That's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah. So I get asked this question quite a bit, right? And there's not a silver bullet. There's not a single arrow in the quiver, but especially for non or less technical entrepreneurs, there's not one answer. There's actually one question that you need to ask yourself at every stage of your business. Okay. And that is, am I currently, like at that moment that you're asking the question, tech centric or tech enabled? And an oversimplification of the two differences is this: tech centricity is where your enterprise value is directly encompassed by the technology that you're building. And I don't mean the value of your business. I don't mean your valuation. The enterprise value is that tangible, investable, acquirable asset. It's the thing that makes you worth whatever it is you're worth, right? So tech centricity is central, not just to the business, but to the enterprise value. Tech enabled is where you're using technology to acquire or scale whatever your enterprise value is, whether that's customers, data, whatever, right? And very rarely is it binary, is it just one or just the other, but you usually fall somewhere on a scale. And so the one question you have to ask yourself at every single stage is, at this moment, am I currently more tech-centric or am I currently more tech-enabled? And I can tell you this, most founders get that question wrong. They tend to think they're more tech-centric than they are, or than they need to be. But asking that question at every stage is important, because you may start off tech-centric, tech-enabled, but there may be elements in the future that become tech-centric. Or, and I'll give you a good example here in a second, those may flip. But Brett, I don't know, is that something that you've seen the startups that you work with kind of fall into that trap of mismanaging or misunderstanding? Are they tech-centric, tech-enabled?
Yeah, I maybe had a slightly different angle on this. I mean, I agree 100% with everything that you just said. I'm a big fan of the tech-enabled organizations, right? Because you've seen the technology learning curve is accelerating quickly, and if somebody comes up with a really good or cool platform, it's not too hard to replicate or duplicate what they're doing. And so how do you build that moat around what your technology is doing? So I like an organization that has some services tied to whatever that technology is, to kind of differentiate. I mean, we talked about, the MarTech, tech, the space, the sales tech, all those. I mean, there's 20,000 different technologies that you could use to better enable your B2B organization, right? And that's really, really hard to cut through the noise. I don't care how good the technology is, right? So how are you telling that story that you're enabling these organizations with your technology to better, help what they're doing? And I'm curious from your standpoint too, JC, coming from more the tech side, historically, the tech-centric, can command a higher valuation just because, hey, it's an SaaS company, it's growing. So I'm just curious what you're seeing now from a valuation. Are they starting to get a little bit more muted or knocked down a little bit for just being technology only? Sorry, Dennis, I took us a little bit off, but I'm kind of curious what JC has on this one.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So yes, generally speaking, if you have a technology component to your business, there's chances are that you can get a stronger multiple. But the reason why is usually not because of the technology, or at least exclusively the technology, right? Yes, if you've got really strong IP or really strong patent work, you've got some real actual legal technical defensibility, that can be good. But usually that's pretty short-lived. People always find a way to reverse engineer. The main reason why technology companies get better valuations and multiples is because of the enablement of recurring revenue, right? So it's not one-off transactions. You've got monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue through these SaaS platforms. And that's why you get, instead of 2 to 4x or 5x multiples like you do for a direct-to-consumer CPG business, you get 10 to 20 to whatever above X you can come up with, right? It's because you're enabling scalable acquisition of users and scalable acquisition and retention of revenue. But your question about the valuation piece is interesting, because I mentioned before an example of the shifting lines of tech centricity and tech enablement. Look at eBay. Okay. When eBay first launched, they were the first in class type of marketplace platform. I mean, in truth, right? They were like, they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to build this one of a kind technology, right? That they were tech centric when they started. Fast forward today, however many, 20 years later, you could call up Farshore Partners right now. We could build an exact clone of eBay for hundreds of thousands of dollars, not millions, right?
Yeah.
And so their platform has now become really ubiquitous. Like, that technology is no longer cutting edge. But what is their enterprise value now? It's the relationships with the users, right? It's the level and volume of product on their platform. So they've gone from actually starting off being much more tech centric, and they've shifted significantly towards tech enablement. And not to bore anybody with too many details, one of the key indicators of that is they've now opened their API, which means they've allowed other people into their system, right? Because they know that the technology piece, like, protecting that and scaling that, yeah, it's a big part of what they do. It's not like they don't have tech, but it's not about creating those walls anymore. It's about creating tunnels in and creating corporate partnerships. So eBay is a good example of a company that started off successfully tech-centric and has now wildly pivoted towards tech enablement and done it really, really well. You usually see it happen the other way. You usually see people go from tech, and I don't know, I'm holding this, from tech enablement to tech centricity with things like AI, ML, stuff like that. But eBay is an awesome example of a company that did the inverse. So ask yourself this one question at every stage, and you'll be successful. And clearly eBay did. They asked themselves, are we tech centric or tech enabled when they launched? And they continue to ask themselves that even as they progressed, and then they successfully pivoted. Had they not, they probably would have failed.
Yeah, that's great. And there's a topic I want to go back to, but I think it's another episode, which is around the pricing and reoccurring revenue. And I've been a big believer that you can almost set up any business as a service, right? It's just taking a different mindset of how you approach and price it and make sure you get it right. But Dennis, let's save that for a full episode, because I think we could go off the rails for a bit on that one as well. Yeah, super interesting. We'll have to have follow-up conversation on the tech, because I think we're in that pivot point right now as it's starting to shift a little bit, and we'll see what's next. So maybe that's one of our other episodes, Dennis, is futuristically, right? In the distant future, 6-12 months, what are we looking at? So,
right.
Interesting.
Well, thank you, everybody. If you guys got any closing statements, I'm going to sign us off, if that's all right.
No, but for the record, I love when JC gets passionate about a topic. So we got to do this more often.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us again here on Mentor Musings. If you like what you listen to, like, subscribe, share with your friends, reach out to us, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah, so we hope to hear you next question, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.